On a quiet spring day in 1945, Mary Jane vanished, leaving behind a trail of questions and a family desperate for answers. Decades passed, and the search for her grew cold, with each lead fading into obscurity. Then, out of nowhere, a name surfaced, rekindling hope and curiosity. This mysterious figure could hold the key to solving the puzzle. Who was this person, and what crucial role did they play in uncovering the truth? On November 19, 1911, Mary Jane Croft VanGilder was born in Fairmont, West Virginia. She got married to James VanGilder on January 29, 1929. Having lost their twins to stillbirth in 1935, Mary was pregnant with their fifth child by the time Second World War broke out. Mary's relationship with James, though, remained troubling, so she moved and started living at their family farm in 1943. Although it is unknown why James and Mary divorced, sources claimed that Mary accused her husband of being abusive and an alcoholic, despite the fact that her children have stated they don't believe their dad was like that. Mary relocated to Plymouth, Ohio in 1944, where she worked as a forklift operator at Shelby's Wilkins Air Force Depot. Since Mary didn't have a car, her coworkers used to give her rides to and from work. Even after relocating to Ohio, Mary stayed in touch with her kids. She would send them letters, clothes, and war bonds. War bonds is a government initiative that is issued to finance military expenditures and operations, allowing the public to purchase debt. The kids had no clue of why their mother moved away and why she separated. In 1945, my mother sued my dad for divorce, which made me think she was wanting to get married again. But we found no answer to that, stated Mary's eldest daughter, Anna Mae VanGilder Rager. In 1945, Mary Jane wrote to her children in West Virginia, stating that they returned the war bonds to her in Plymouth. Few weeks later, she mailed them her last war bond. That was the final exchange Mary Jane ever had with her family. A few months later, James filed for separation, but Mary never got back to him. In April 1946, Mary's lawyer withdrew her divorce petition when she did not appear in court. A West Virginian judge granted James the divorce, along with complete custody of their kids. Anna, Mary's eldest daughter, began searching for her mother in 1949. It was not until May 5, 1952, that she discovered that her mother had resigned from her position at the Wilkins Air Force Depot on March 8, 1945, claiming she had to leave because of added household duties. Anna, her daughter, never gave up searching for her mother, even though she wasn't ever formally declared missing. In the year 2004, when a newspaper in Ohio published an article about their search for VanGilder, Anna came across a new connection to her mother's past. Apparently, a man, after reading that Plymouth Journal's article, reached out to Anna, claiming that his dad used to be a co-worker of Mary between 1943 and 1945. Nevertheless, they weren't sure of what happened to her after that. Mary was ultimately reported missing to the authorities in April 2018 by her granddaughter, Mindy Wilson. That pain, that desperation, and that need to know is still very fresh for Anna, stated Adam Turner, the officer in charge of the investigation. The not knowing is worse than the knowing. When somebody's missing, you're left in limbo. Adam proceeded to work on the case, obtaining Mary's military personnel file, which he posted online in the hopes of garnering some leads. Before long, a civilian sleuth led him to a name on a file document that was going to be crucial in cracking the case. It was Percy L. Sebrin, the name that the sleuth pointed out to. Turns out Mary assumed the role of high-lift fork operator from Sabrin when she was promoted, and it is quite possible that she had trained under him over the years. After looking up Sebren's biography on findagrave.com, Adam found out that he was run over by a train and passed away in 1969 in Kansas City, Missouri. Additionally, it revealed that he was married to a Mary Jane C. Sebren, who was born on November 19, 1911, and then passed away in 1990. The two were laid to rest at Forest, Louisiana. The couple resided in Arkansas and had 2 kids. Interestingly, December 1945 saw the birth of the first child, 9 months after VanGilder quit her employment at the Wilkins Air Force Depot. After that, Adam got in touch with one of Sebren's grandchildren, who immediately sent him pictures of Mary Jane Sebren. In addition, he received a document from the grandchildren that was signed by Mary Jane Sebren. When this signature was compared to Mary Jane VanGilder's, there were obvious similarities in the letter shapes and formatting. In the pictures, Mary Jane Sebren and Mary Jane VanGilder looked remarkably similar. In February 2024, a DNA comparison officially proved Mary Jane Sebren's identity as Mary Jane VanGilder. Mary Jane was a wonderful grandma who loved gardening, especially hydrangeas, according to her second family's grandchildren. She liked sun tea and was quite good at cooking. It was found somewhat unexpectedly that Mary was using a different Social Security number than what was listed in her military file. In 1990, Mary passed away from colon cancer. She was cremated and buried beside her spouse. In her last moments, Mary Jane revealed something to one of her granddaughters, something she couldn't be ever able to say. That granddaughter added that, up until this point, she had thought her grandmother was speaking gibberish, but now everything made sense. Adam described the heartbreaking experience the VanGilder family had upon learning of Mary Jane's actual fate after decades of looking for her. The case of Mary Jane went on to uncover 2 additional mysteries. Officer Adam Turner in the 1960s, while searching for Mary Jane, came onto a file about a Jane Doe who was discovered in Preble County. The Jane Doe's description fit Mary Jane VanGilder so well that her body was exhumed for DNA testing in late 2019. The test findings, though, were inconsistent with Mary Jane. Still, the officer made the decision to keep looking for Jane Doe. To solve the case, he collaborated with Moxie Forensic Investigations to create a DNA profile and utilize genetic genealogy. To their surprise, the Preble County Jane Doe turned out to be Albert Frost, a man from Hamilton, Ohio, who had been missing since the early 1960s. The error might have occurred because Albert's remains were in a severely deteriorated state, scattered over around 75 feet. His cause of death remained undetermined. When Albert's closest biological relative, his great-niece, Tina Barrett, was contacted, another mystery emerged. Tina didn't know about Albert at first and assumed they were talking about her great-aunt Clara. It was discovered that the same family had 2 missing siblings. Albert had a sister named Clara, who also went missing and was never seen again. She disappeared in her early 20s, about a decade before Albert did in the 1950s. It was revealed by family members that Clara's mother had sold her to a man who later married her. Together they had 2 children who were barely a baby and a toddler when she went missing. Clara's family figured that her disappearance was odd and reported to authorities that her husband had been physically abusive to her. Clara's husband insisted that she ran off on her own, denying any involvement in her absence. The husband got married again and shifted to Pennsylvania along with the kids. Clara's husband, now deceased, is considered as a person of interest in her disappearance. Further complicating the investigation, the VanGilder family's house in West Virginia burned down in 1986, taking any remaining personal items or potential evidence with it. This loss of physical evidence made the case more difficult for the detectives. Officer Adam Turner's work was distinguished by persistence in the face of several challenges. Many of the coroner's offices and police departments he contacted around the nation were at first uncooperative. His efforts paid off as media articles and podcasts raised awareness of the case and eventually yielded the critical lead pertaining to Percy Sebren. The VanGilder family experienced a bittersweet sense of closure with the revelation of Mary Jane Sebren's identity. While this case has been concluded, Clara's mysterious disappearance still looms large. Could there be more to her husband's story, or was foul play truly at the heart of her vanishing? With that being said, this case has hit the radar, so authorities might be looking into it. Hopefully, we'll know the truth in the near future. Born and raised in a small Mexican town, Lina Geddes was a skilled ballet dancer who also held a degree in international business. In 1996, she met Edward Geddes in New Mexico. 6 months later, they got married and relocated to Toledo, Ohio. On April 8, 1998, Lina was supposed to visit her family in Laredo, Texas, but she never showed up. Instead of contacting the authorities to report his wife missing, Edward Geddes chose to have her worried family do so. In October 1998, when state authorities interviewed Geddes about his missing wife, he claimed that he had last seen her when he had dropped her off at the Pittsburgh airport. She was carrying a case for cosmetics, a suitcase, and a blue sleeping bag that he said was meant to be a present for a young cousin. On April 20, 1998, motorists, while driving along Utah Highway 276, discovered a wrapped body close to Maiden Water Spring. The woman, who was subsequently identified as Lina, was discovered inside numerous layers of plastic, duct tape, a sleeping bag, and a kid's rug. Her face was still identifiable, but her fingerprints were gone, making the identification process more challenging. Initially, she went by the name as the Maiden Water victim. The investigation ran into a lot of obstacles. Lina's body was meticulously wrapped, her identity hidden behind the elimination of her fingerprints. One of the first people to be suspected was serial killer Scott Lee Kimball, although he was eventually ruled out. Over time, the lack of conclusive leads caused the investigation to become cold. In 2018, authorities made a breakthrough while updating their missing persons records. Advanced DNA analysis linked the Maiden Water victim to Lina Geddes. This finding marked a huge step forward, although the actual perpetrator was not found until 2022. Using DNA from the rope that had been used to bound Lina, detectives traced the crime to her husband, Edward Geddes. Sadly, Edward could not be prosecuted because he had taken his life in 2001. Nonetheless, Lina's family received closure when DNA match with surviving family members proved his guilt. In 2024, updates on the Lina Geddes case confirmed that her husband, Edward Geddes, was definitively linked to her slaying through advanced DNA analysis. The resolution was emphasized by the authorities as an example of how effective modern forensic technology is. Family members of Lina, particularly her sister Lucero Reyes, expressed mixed feelings: satisfaction that the crime had been solved, and sadness over the tragedy. Lucero's efforts to find Lina and bring her home finally saw fruition, albeit not in the manner she had intended. A woman called the Colorado Springs Police Department on February 7, 1977, at around 11:21 p.m., reporting what she believed to be a homicide in the 5400 block of North Nevada Avenue in Colorado Springs. Upon arrival, the police found 14-year-old Maria Lorraine Honzell's body. She had passed away from a stabbing wound. In the same apartment building, the Suncrest Apartments, Maria was babysitting for a female neighbor. About 11:20 p.m., that neighbor discovered Maria dead in the master bedroom. During the incident, the neighbor's children, aged 8 and 6, were also there, but thankfully, they were not hurt. They were sleeping in bedroom when the neighbor arrived home and found the body. Maria suffered several stab wounds to her chest and one major stab wound to her neck, based upon the results of her autopsy. Her death was declared a homicide. Nevertheless, no plausible motive could be established. Before she passed away, while babysitting the kids, Maria had a heartfelt conversation with one of her close friends. In a phone call, she expressed her love and concluded with the words, "I love you." The last known conversation Maria had with someone was this phone call. A comprehensive investigation was carried out by the Colorado Springs Police Department, CSPD, involving a large number of interviews, reports, and evidence collection. At the time, no suspect had been identified. Nonetheless, CSPD continued to explore leads and employ additional investigation techniques. With the advancement of DNA technology, multiple pieces of evidence were forwarded to the Colorado Bureau of Investigation for additional examination. A bloodstain on Maria Honzell's clothes yielded a male DNA profile. However, despite testing samples from several possible suspects and submitting the DNA profile into the combined DNA index system, no matches were found. It didn't take long after that for the case to go cold. With help from Parabon Nanolabs, the male DNA profile was compared with samples in a public genetic genealogy database in 2019 in an attempt to identify a biological relative of the unknown suspect. After conducting a thorough investigation, William Charles Kernan, Jr., who also went by Bill Kernan, was found to be a person of interest. 2010 saw Kernan's passing. Since he was cremated and had no surviving family, authorities were unable to obtain his DNA. It was later found that Kernan was a college student from the area, and a friend of the lady, Maria Honzell, had been babysitting for the evening before she was slain. Further investigation suggested that Kernan had previously visited the apartment building on multiple occasions. Even on her worst days, Maria was often seen smiling, and she was well known for her upbeat demeanor. As the middle child, she came from a huge household with 7 siblings. Not many months before Maria's slaying, her mother died of heart problems, which made Maria assume a more maternal position in her family. Her terrible passing had a long-lasting effect on her family and the community, spanning several decades. Following a review of the case, which included genetic genealogical research, the 4th Judicial DA's office stated that they were confident Kernan was the one who took Maria's life. After 47 years, the case was finally closed. If you find this video compelling, show your support by giving it a thumbs up, subscribing to our channel, and ringing that notification bell. By doing so, you'll stay updated about the latest investigations and mysteries. Your support means the world to us as we continue to pursue the truth in the world of cold cases.